everyone, I am Kevin and welcome back to KDX Bricks Analytics, and it is time to grade some of our past predictions. I am very excited. It's a video that I've wanted to make since I started my channel, and I will be making many videos like this going forward, but we finally have enough data under our belt and we finally have enough time that we've held on to some sets post-retirement that we can now compare secondary market returns on investment to what we paid for these sets back when they were available on the shelves. We're going to look at a lot of good data, charts, and tables, so let's get right into it. So here we are on my YouTube page, and if I sort my videos, oldest and newest, my first one was 10 months ago, and to make my original videos, I was going back into 2022 to collect data. So we've got about half year's worth of 2022 data that we will start analyzing to see how the performance is going for those sets. And remember, I watch all of the other Lego investing and reselling YouTube videos so that you don't have to, and while I'm watching them, I collect a bunch of data on mentions and enthusiasm score. If you're new to my channel, go watch some previous videos where I explain a little better, but you'll catch on as we're going. It'll be a lot of fun to go through all of this. For example, this is one of the tables that we're going to look at, and it shows that an enthusiasm score of 2.4 to 2.6 is getting a 4% return on investment if you paid full RRP, recommended retail price, and it's getting a 30% return on investment if you paid 20% off of the RRP. We'll go through all of this data and a lot more here very soon, but first I want to look at some individual sets and see how they are performing just a little bit more than a year after they retired at the end of 2022. Here's a very rough data table that I'm using to get all this information, and I will show you a cleaned up version here in a second, but I want to show you each element that I'm collecting. So if we take set 76199 Carnage, for example, I marked over here it's a Marvel set. It was exclusive to Target. It got 6 mentions, and those 6 mentions averaged out to an enthusiasm score of 2.8. The current value is $80, and then this column is very important. I dropped every current value by 10% to account for tax. I just picked a round number. I know some people who do major business and have a lot of business expenses pay very little tax. Some people that maybe do it as a very, very small hobby pay no tax. Some people who do it as a medium hobby will pay some tax. And so again, I just picked 10% to do the best we could on that. And I also need to note that I got all of the current value numbers using Brickset. There's a few different resources out there to be consistent. I went right to Brickset, and whatever the value says for new, i.e. $80 for Carnage, that's what I put on the table. In my experience, on average, I have found that Brickset's value is what you will get after you subtract out shipping and fees, or if you're selling locally and it's a little lower price than what people pay on eBay. I don't do Amazon or Bricklink yet. Someday I hope to work those out, but I do about half and half local via Marketplace and half on eBay. So again, $80 is my gross take-home amount. Using Carnage as an example, if I paid $60 for it, I might have sold it for $105 on eBay, but after subtracting shipping and fees, I actually got to take home $80, which means that I got $20 profit. And sure enough, on eBay, this set is selling for $100 or so dollars. So a couple that are right around 100. Here's one that's 100 with $9 of shipping. Again, I think the $80 price on Brickset is a very good estimate. Back to my scratchwork table, the next column is the recommended retail price, RRP, $60. I did put another column next to it where I added 5% to represent sales tax. I know some people don't pay any, and I know that it fluctuates between 4 and 10 or so percent. I just went with around 5%, and then I calculated 20% off of the RRP in the next column, and then what that price would be after taxes. I'm going to show data for if you paid full price or if you got it for 20% off. The vast majority of the time, if you are patient and work Rakuten, card cash, stacking deals, VIP points, gifts with purchase, you can get at least 20% off on most sets. Every now and then there is a Lego only exclusive that can be really hard to get a discount on, but a lot of times you can actually get greater than 20%. And then the next two columns are the current return on investment when comparing the current value to the RRPs, so 14% and then 43% if you got it 20% off. I did put in price per piece, but I ended up not using that data. And then the last two columns, I calculated shelf life in years. A lot of these columns I want to hide for actual reporting and data analysis. Just know that they're running in the background. And then if I click on this table, here's what it looks like all cleaned up. Let's talk about some individual sets first and see how they're doing. I'll grade myself, grade all of the YouTube videos that I watched in some cases, and then we'll look at the comprehensive summary table at the end of this this video. And then lastly, I'll give you my conclusion, basically my main takeaways from how I would analyze the data that we're going to look at. So from July to end of 2022, there were 672 Lego set mentions from all the videos that I watched. They are captured on this table. We won't go through all of them, but we'll look at some highlights. The one that got the most mentions and has the highest enthusiasm score is this one right here, 40558, the Clone Trooper Command Station. Here's a picture of it. Current value of $25, retailed for $15, and so it's got a 43% and then a 79% return on investment if you got it 20% off. Obviously, for just 1 year into retirement, 79% is a really good number. Keep in mind the target hold time is 2 and maybe even 3 years these days, and so I wouldn't be selling these right away. I'd like to wait for that second year to happen, but I wanted to look at this data once we got the first year under our belt, and I will come back and look at all of these same sets again about a year from now. But for this top set, I'm going to give all of us an A. It got the most mentions, a 2.9, very high enthusiasm score. It's only out of 3.0, and it's got a very high 79% ROI in the last column, which as you can see is one of the highest. The next one to look at is Demogorgon and 11, the Brickheads 40549 from Stranger Things. 2.6 enthusiasm score, but also 17 mentions, and it's got a 24 and 55% ROI. The community gets an A on this one, but I only get a C because if I recall, I wasn't that excited about this Brickhead set. And by the way, I'm going to go off of memory what I said about these sets. If you watch old videos and you catch me saying something different, please point it out. I'm going to do the best I can in remembering what I can. Third one up is 75314, the Bad Batch Attack Shuttle, 44% return on investment at 20% off of the $100 retail price, already valued at $134, 17 mentions, E-score of 2.4. All of us get an A on this set. That's one of my favorites from 2022. And same thing with this one, the Mandalorian Starfighter 75316, 2.9 enthusiasm score and a 71% return on investment. I know my picture-in-picture is really small right now, but at the opening of this video, I've got a bunch of these on my shelf behind me. Another Star Wars set, the Armored Assault Tank 75283, only a 2.3 enthusiasm score, but it does have a 37% ROI so far, 20% off of the $40 retail price, but a lot of mentions, 15, and I think that's actually a pretty good data set for how this set is performing so far. So I think an A for the community. I was really poo-pooing this set if I recall, so I would give me a B or a C on this one. 75280, the 501st Legion Clone Troopers Battle Pack, basically 2.1 enthusiasm score, 15 mentions, only 21% if you got a 20% off, and you're actually losing money a year in if you paid full price. And I do want to point out the current value is $34. The retail price was $30, but it's still showing a minus 3% return on investment. Remember, that's because I am factoring in 10% tax when you sell it, 5% tax when you bought it, and shipping and eBay fees or online fees. 75319, the Armor's Mandalorian Forge. This is a great set, super cool. Minifigures, especially the armor. 2.6, 14 mentions, solid numbers, and a 93% ROI and a 54% ROI if you paid full price. This set was a Target exclusive, and it was hard to get a bunch of them. I think I only got 2. I should have been able to get more than that, but I was sleeping on the job with this one. But once I realized we all were excited about it, I'd give everybody an A on this set. 75252, the Imperial Star Destroyer, the large UCS set, 12 mentions, enthusiasm score of 1.8, and it's only a 20% ROI in the last column. I think we all nailed this one pretty good too, so we all get an A. 75277, Boba Fett helmet, 2.5 enthusiasm score. That's really good for a set that had a very long shelf life. 11 mentions, and it's already got a 27% return on investment. I'm going to give the community an A, and I'm going to give myself a D because I was not excited about this set. And in hindsight, all the helmets seem to be doing really well. Even the one that came out in the first wave and was on the shelves, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was almost 4 years. 75296, Darth Vader Meditation Chamber, 2.4 enthusiasm score, 11 mentions, but only 16% ROI. I'm gonna give myself an A. I thought it was ugly, and the community, I think, gets a C on this one. They were a little more excited about it than it's performing so far. A Harry Potter set, the Hogwarts Wizard's Chess, very cool. 10 mentions with a 2.3 enthusiasm score, already 45% return on investment. Got the gold 20-year commemorative minifigure. I think the community and I both get a B on this one. 75980, Attack on the Burrow, 2.7 enthusiasm score, 9 mentions, but only a 29% return on investment so far. I was aligned with the community, so I'm going to give us all a C+ on this one. 76188, Batman Classic TV Series Batmobile. This was an easy one. I think it was a Walmart exclusive, but it might have been Target. Sorry, I'm forgetting that. But 9 mentions, an E-score of 2.7, and already 50% return on investment. An A for all of us. It's a great set. 76239, Batman Tumbler, the Scarecrow Showdown. 2.7, 9 mentions, and only 23% return on investment so far. This one has been a disappointment the first year into retirement. So I'm going to give us all a C on it, even though I think maybe with a little bit longer hold time, 2.5 years, maybe even 3 years, I think it will be a really good one. 75306, the Imperial Probe Droid. A lot of buzz around this one, but low enthusiasm score, so only a 1.4 and minus 11% at full retail price and positive 11% at 20% off. All right, an ideas set 21324, 123 Sesame Street. That's a lot of numbers there. Great exclusive minifigures. 8 mentions, enthusiasm score of 2.5 on the table, and only 11% after a year. Hugely disappointing. I'm giving the community a D. I will say, if I recall right, I wasn't as enthusiastic about this one as most of the people that I watched on the other videos, so I'm going to give myself a B-. 76161, the large 1989 Batwing, basically a UCS type version. It's got the UCS plaque and the few little minifigures on the side. 8 mentions, enthusiasm score at 2.4, minus 17% if you paid retail and only plus 4%. The larger sets typically need a longer hold time, so I'm not freaking out about this one. But 1 year in, I think we all get an F on this one so far. Maybe a D-. 71040, Disney Castle, the very large $350 set. It's a great set, but the enthusiasm score is a 2.3 and it's only doing 3% ROI. The community gets a C because 2.3 isn't the highest, and I'm going to give myself a B+ because I don't think I was very excited about this set for investing. Imperial Shuttle, enthusiasm score 1.8 with 1 mention, 13% ROI. I think we all nailed this one. Lego has made this a few times in the past, and at some point there are so many from the past that we know another one is going to be coming sometime soon that it's not a great set for investing. Similar with the Star Wars TIE Fighter, the X-Wing Fighter, and even Boba Fett Slave One. Another Brickheads, the Buzz Lightyear that looks super cool, and this one stayed on the shelves available for months, I think 3 or 4 months, maybe even 5 months after it retired. 7 mentions, enthusiasm score of 2.6, 50% off ROI, but it's just a couple of bucks, $14 that you're selling, and if you got it for 8, you're selling it for 14. Not great so far, but if we're grading ROI, then I think we all get an A, but we are all certainly hoping that this turns into a $25 set, if not more. 21321, the International Space Station. You guys know I love the NASA theme set. 7 mentions, E-score of 2.4 and 22% if you got it 20% off. And I would say that's pretty close by the community. I'll give the community a B+, but I'm giving myself a C-. I was a lot more excited about this set. I'm hoping that this 22% turns into an 80 to 100% by the end of year 2 in retirement. It's a really good set. Mine's sitting on my shelf at work, and I'm surprised it's not doing a little better, honestly. 40496, Voldemort, Nagini, and Bellatrix, Brickheads from Harry Potter. 7 mentions, E-score of 2.3, 33%. I felt the same way, and I think those are pretty good numbers for a 33% return on investment, so I'm going to give us all an A. 76395, Hogwarts First Flying Lesson. 7 mentions, enthusiasm score of 2.3, and it's a 54% return on investment. This one was easy to get 20% off. I didn't get any. I'm still kicking myself. The community scores were too low. I'm giving them a B-, and I'm giving myself an F for not getting any, even though I did like the set. 75305, the Scout Trooper helmet. Many people consider this one to be the worst of the helmets, and it is doing 33%, and a lot of people got this one on a good discount. 7 mentions with an enthusiasm score of 2. I'm sure a lot of people, myself included, are looking back saying they wish they'd focused on a little bit more, so I'm going to give us all a C. 75311, the Imperial Armored Marauder. 7 mentions, E-score 2 with an 18% ROI in the last column. Good job by the community. They get an A. I'm going to give myself a C because I was a lot more enthusiastic about this set. 76199, 6 mentions, but an E-score of 2.8, a 43% ROI. This is Carnage that we talked about up front. Great job, community. Everybody gets an A, even though we all are wishing this one would be more like 60%. But 1 year in, with the economy going on, a lot more people into Lego investing, a 43% is a really good number. 76903, the Speed Champions Chevy Corvette 2-pack, a very good 2.7 enthusiasm score with the 6 mentions and 39% return on investment. I'll give us all an A-. I think we were hoping for more now, and we are certainly hoping for more come year 2 into year 3. Another NASA set, the second publication by Lego of this Saturn Apollo 5. Such a cool set. I have one from the first round also on my shelf at work. It's 92176, 2.3 enthusiasm score, 6 mentions, 28% ROI. I think we were all on the same page. That sounds pretty accurate. So everybody gets an A on this set. 21051 Tokyo, 6 mentions with a 2.2 enthusiasm score, minus 13 if you bought it retail, and only 9% if you bought it 20% off. I'm going to give the community a B-. I'm going to give myself an A because I really didn't pay too much attention to this set. So maybe by default I get an A because I was ignoring it. 10275 Elf Clubhouse, 6 mentions, enthusiasm score of 1.8, only a 5% return on investment. We all agreed on that one, so everybody gets an A. 10276, the Volkswagen T2 camper van, also 6 mentions, 1.8 enthusiasm score, and it's a minus 18% ROI, and it's a minus 34% if you paid full price. I get a C because I only talked about it a little bit, and it was very mildly, and the community gets a D because this should be more like a 0.5 or only have mentions on the not top sets table. 42126, the Technic Ford F-150 Raptor. It's a really cool set. 1.8 enthusiasm score, 6 mentions, 15%. All that seems good to me. I'll give us all an A. 75955 Hogwarts Express. We all get a D on this one because it's a minus 5% and a 1.8 enthusiasm score. I was maybe even a little bit more enthusiastic about it if I remember, but this one is not doing well, and it's because Lego put out another one in this scale, and it looks like Lego's just going to keep on producing these. So we've all learned our lesson. We won't be getting the new one that's out, I'm sure. 75315, the Imperial Light Cruiser. This one got a lot of attention because of some of the minifigures and also the price point, which was $160 for just over 1,300 pieces, almost like 2022's Justifier that was very off balance with the price. So 6 mentions, enthusiasm score 1.3, 9% ROI if you got it on sale, but still not great. I think we all get an A on this one, and generally wanting to avoid it. Maybe after a longer hold time it'll do okay. All right, and those are all the sets that got 6 mentions or more. So now I'm just going to scroll through the rest and look at about 5 more that had some interest to me. For the ones I'm not talking about, just read the table as we're going. First one I want to look at is 42083, the Bugatti Chiron. Huge Technic set, mostly of interest because I don't have it and I want it, and you can see behind me I've got a couple of the other large ones, but it did get a 2.3 enthusiasm score, only 4 mentions, but only a 1% return on investment. Since it's not too many mentions, I'm going to give all of us a C- on this one. Right below the Bugatti is Fox 76394. Also 4 mentions with enthusiasm score of 2.3, but this one has a 58% ROI in the last column. So just like the Bugatti, everybody gets a D except for the other reason, because this one is performing a lot better than we were expecting. Should have like a 2.8 enthusiasm score and at least 10 mentions in my opinion. And I wasn't focused on this one either, so I also earned the D. Now on to Central Perk 21319, and I've got to find it on the table here. I'm still scrolling and I might have scrolled past it. There it is. It wasn't that far down. 3 mentions, enthusiasm score 2.3, 20% return on investment. I think that's all very good. So the community did a good job on that, but not me. I did not like this set at all. Absolutely wanted to avoid it. And so I get D. Community gets a B. Another Brickheads, Lady Liberty 40367. Very cool looking Brickheads. The nose is a little bit off, but the rest of it looks good. Here it is on the table. 1 mention, but an enthusiasm score of 3 and a 39% ROI in the last column. Good job to the one person that was mentioning and tracking this set. If they pick some up, they're going to do okay in a couple of years. Next up is 40454, the Spider-Man, Venom, and Iron Man battle pack, basically. It's one of those blister packs. Really cool set. Only 1 mention, enthusiasm score of 3 though, and a 43% return on investment. I'm giving the person that gave this one mention an A. I'm giving myself an A because I picked up 5 of these when they were on discount before retirement. And I'm giving the community a D because this one is performing well and a little bit rumblings here and there, but a lot more people clearly should have been looking at it. And then the last one I want to specifically point out is 31204, Elvis Presley, The King, this artwork set. And scrolling down the table, it's right here, and it has a 25% ROI. It has one mention and only an enthusiasm score of 1.0 out of 3. That's not good. We all were really down on the art sets, and it's going up above our RP, so not bad. So good job to the people that picked that set up. And then here are the rest of the ones that I'm not going to talk about, but this break and below are the not top sets that I will talk about for a minute. Since these sets are from the not top sets table, obviously they have enthusiasm scores of 0. So this means that the presenter in the YouTube video was absolutely avoiding it for investing themselves. Let's look at the first one, 75299, Trouble on Tatooine. Horrible set, horrible set, minus 14% ROI, 7 mentions against. It was the highest ranked. Good job, everybody, and avoiding this one. And also good job, everybody, avoiding the second one, 10291, Queer Eye, the Fab 5 Loft. This one actually has some really good minifigure torsos and some good foliage pieces and a lot of the white and light bluish gray masonry pieces, which are awesome, and some really good printed tiles for the rugs. So there's a lot of great pieces. The problem with this set is it just came out well after the main buzz around this show peaked. With the 6 mentions and against and a minus 30% ROI, I'm glad I skipped it. I actually saw a couple of these in a Target about a month ago, and I was curious if they were going to sell them for 30 bucks. Nope, they had them for full price. I don't know what they were thinking or where they came from. 10272, the Old Trafford Manchester United Stadium. Very large set, retailed for $300, and it's got a 15% ROI in the last column, so kind of an oops that it's got 5 mentions on this table. We all were saying that these stadiums have not sold well. The market is way too narrow, but we also were saying of the 3, I think this one by far was the most unique and interesting looking, really cool build and design techniques. Love all the roofing and overhang structures and all the support beams and how Lego did that. So really good, but I think it's a surprise to a lot of us that it's actually selling for above retail price. 75255, the brick built Yoda, 5 mentions. Not my favorite set at all, as you guys have heard in my previous videos, so we did a good job avoiding this one. We already talked about Central Perk. Probably shouldn't have 4 mentions on the not top sets table since it's already at a 21% ROI, which is okay a year in. 75955, Hogwarts Express. Already talked about this one. I'm glad to see it's on the not top sets table. This one was easy. 10282, the Adidas Originals Superstar, minus 12%. The big issue was that it came with 1 shoe and not 2. Lego would have done a much better job had it come with 2 shoes, but also the shaping is just not good. This wasn't going to appeal to sneakerheads. They were going to look at this and say, whoa, doesn't look like anything that I own or want to own. Here's the other stadium that retired at the end of 2022, 10284, Camp Nou FC Barcelona. And yes, this is what we were expecting for the stadiums, minus 8% in the last column. The Technic Bugatti Chiron that we already talked about, just wanted to show that it did get 3 mentions on the not top sets table. It's a good call by those 3 folks since it only has a 1% ROI 1 year into retirement. 43179, Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse. Great job, everybody, myself included. So much looks good on this set. The tripod stands, the feet, the clothes look pretty good, but then the faces do not work out. Just like the new brick built Chewbacca, Lego really struggles with faces, which makes sense. I think artists have the hardest time with faces. There's so many muscles in your face, so many different ways you can show expression by using all those different muscles and, different combinations, again, so many permutations with how you can show facial expressions that it's hard for Lego to capture that and what a human would really want to see in the facial expression of a model that represents a human type face. So yes, good job skipping this one. And then the last one to look at on the table specifically is 75295, the Millennium Falcon Microfighter. Yeah, this one wasn't that interesting, but it's got a 7% ROI in the last column, which is okay, but not great. It's basically selling for a retail price right now. I'll scroll down, but with the rest of these sets only getting 2 mentions or 1 mention against investing, and a lot of them have very low or negative ROIs, there's no reason to go into the rest of this. All right, now we're getting to the tables and charts, and I am very excited to run through all of this. First time I've put this data together, as I stated at the beginning. So here's the first chart. This is a breakdown of number of mentions and then return on investment if you paid full price and return on investment if you paid 20% off of retail price. And I asked myself day one when I started collecting this data, is this data going to mean anything? Is it going to be useful? Is it going to translate to good guidance as to how I want to buy and plan my Lego investments? And this chart says, yep, at least the mentions so far are really good data. The set that got the most mentions, I think was like 17 or 19. So I just broke it down into categories. So sets that got 16 to 20 mentions, 11 to 15, 6 to 10, 1 to 5, the 4 rows in this table. And here are the returns on investment. And so 16 to 20 got the highest return on investment. 11 to 15 got the next. 6 to 10 got a little lower. And then 1 to 5, not very good on return on investment. On average, had I looked at all the sets that got 16 or more mentions throughout 2022, and I had equally distributed my investment funds across all those sets, then 1 year into retirement, I would be having a 62% return on investment. Again, if I got them all 20% off of retail. Here is the same information, but in graphical form. A couple of things to point out is that return on investment absolutely drops quickly if you pay full price. I do not pay full price for any Lego set, maybe under the rarest occasion, but I have my list of sets that I want to invest in, acknowledging that I might not pick them all up, and I pick the ones based on when I can find a really good discount on them. So getting them on sale is critical. And then as we showed in the table, the return on investment decreases pretty linearly and pretty rapidly once you jump down in the different categories of quantity of mentions. Now, same idea, but this time we're going to look at the enthusiasm score, and this table includes all of the sets that even got 1 mention or 2 mentions. The next table clears out all of the sets that only got 1 or 2 mentions so that we can zero in on more specific data and sets that got talked about a lot more, so we can kind of clear out some of that extraneous data that may not be useful. But this is all the sets that got a mention and their enthusiasm scores. We got the categories or ranges here, and they're not exact values. I just kind of found a good breaking point, but 2.7 to 3.0 to me is we think it's going to be knocked out of the park. So it got a 35% return on investment. 2.4 to 2.6 is really good. 30% return on investment. 2 to 2.3 is okay. Maybe something to look at and be careful with. 18% ROI. And then for me, anything below 2, unless I find a huge discount, I'm probably not going to invest in it, and those ROIs drop. But knowing which sets have low 2s and high 1s, E-scores for me really helps me, because maybe it's a set that I'm not going to pay attention to, but if it goes on a 60% discount, now I've got the data to say, oh, okay, so at 60% off, I can do all right on that set. Here's that same information in graphical form, and very similar story. The ROI decreases linearly and rapidly based on the enthusiasm score categories. And again, you got to get these sets on sale. And then here's the next enthusiasm table I was telling you about. And this is where I removed the sets that only got 1 or 2 mentions. And it's not much different. The ROIs are a little higher, especially up in the upper parts, but the middle bottom is about the same. And then here's that information graphically, and it looks very similar to the other enthusiasm score graphic. All right, I pulled together some other interesting ways to analyze the data. So I said, hey, let's see how all the themes do. And the top theme is creator at 13% and 41% ROI, which is really good. But remember, this is not all of the creator sets that retired at the end of 2022. It is only, in this case, 2 creator sets that got mentions when I was watching all of the other Lego investing and reselling videos on YouTube. So this table is not a representation of the full theme. It's only a representation by theme of all the sets that we talked about. And I did not include the not top sets data in this table. Next up is Brickheads. That one's a little bit less of a surprise. Brickheads have been very popular the last few years. And then third up, Star Wars. That makes sense. 24%. Ideas is fourth up with a -6 and a 17%. Speed Champions -8%, 15%. All that seems reasonable. Brickheads, Star Wars, Ideas, Speed Champions all do well. I think I would rank them in that same order too. And then Speed Champions is slowing down a little bit. They are evergreen sets, but the whole time is going to get longer and longer in my opinion. Harry Potter, 14%. I expect that to continue to drop as that theme becomes less and less popular right now. DC Comics, Marvel are pretty similar at 11-10%. Seems reasonable. The superhero sets don't get a lot of buzz. Lego's repeated a lot of characters and a lot of similar builds, and I think we're just getting superhero fatigue right now. And here are the rest of the themes that got mentions. Architecture and Monkey Kid, 9 and 8%. 8%, seasonal 6%. I pretty much avoid those. And then everything else is 5 or less percent. A lot of them into the big negatives here at the bottom of the table. All themes that I pretty much skip when I purchase for investing. And another interesting table, I calculated ROI based on shelf life. So sets that had less than a year shelf life, 19% ROI, 1 to 1.5 years, 18% ROI, 1.6 to 2 years, 8%. That's a pretty big drop. And then 2 to 3, 12%, 3 to 4, 30%, and greater than 4 years, only 2%. Notice that all of the ROIs, if you were to buy these sets at full price, are in the negative. So there's a couple of takeaways. Number one, yes, clearly sets that are less than a year or even less than 1.5 years have an advantage. But then when you get into the 2, 3, 4 years, it looks like it levels out. And now it's going to be based on how good the set is, how good the minifigures are. And then the other thing that's interesting is that all of these categories average out as a negative ROI if you paid full retail. And that tells me that there are good sets and bad sets in all of these ranges, and that it kind of evened out the ROI percentages. So when I'm picking sets to invest in, I'm going to pay attention to shelf life a little bit, but it's not the end all be all, because clearly there are sets with short shelf lives that do poorly and sets with a long shelf life that do really well. So it's one of multiple factors that we need to look at. But yeah, it's interesting that 18% are the top of this table. But if we go back to enthusiasm, it's 39%. If we go back to mentions, it's 62%. So far mentions is the primary metric that at least this data says is of value. Here's the shelf life data graphically. I didn't do graphs for all of them, but I do like pictures. It makes it a little easier for me to visualize. Yeah, it jumps out immediately that all the blue bars are a negative ROI, and that the orange bars start out strong with the shorter shelf life time frame, and then it really evens out and kind of increases if you pick the right sets in the 3 to 4 year shelf life time frame. And now on to the last table in this video, exclusive versus not exclusive. If the set is exclusive, then it got a -2%, but more importantly, a 22% ROI in the last column. And if it was not exclusive, then it has a 9% in the last column. Both of these data rows are made up of 20, 30, 40 sets. And so this may not be hugely valuable information, but there is a trend there that on average, exclusive sets do better than non-exclusive sets. Flipping backwards through all these tables, I'll give you my takeaways and the conclusions that I'm going to draw from all this information. So looking at exclusive versus not exclusive, I'm absolutely going to pay attention to exclusive sets like the Republic Fighter Tank that was exclusive to Target that retired at the end of 2023, but I'm not ruling out non-exclusive sets. Same thing with shelf life. If I can find a good Star Wars set or a good Brickhead set that is a year and a half or less, then I'm going to want it. But outside of that, then I'm going to be looking more at the minifigures, sales velocity, theme, number of mentions, all kinds of stuff. Shelf life is a good indicator, but it's not going to be my primary indicator. And then going backwards with theme, this will help a little bit, but honestly, this will correlate to number of mentions. Brickhead, Star Wars, Ideas, Speed Champions, they get the most mentions anyways, but I think it was an interesting data set. Looking at the enthusiasm score tables, yep, this is going to be a major indicator. The more enthusiastic the community is about a set. So far in 2022, it got a higher return on investment. And then the first table that we looked at is the one that I am going to be paying attention to most, and that is mentions. And it's interesting because when I first started producing videos for my channel, I was sorting by enthusiasm score, and one of my early comments, the person said, hey, can you sort by mentions? Put the highest mentions first, and then we'll see what enthusiasm score matches. And they said, hey, mentions will be more valuable than the enthusiasm score. And sure enough, they were right, because if I just stuck to sets that had the highest number of mentions, then that would have been the highest of all the tables that we looked at in this data analysis. Whew. All right, that was a lot of data, but that was a fun video to make, and it was really interesting to look through all that as I was putting it together. My final takeaway is good job, Lego investing community. There was direct correlation to the higher the number of mentions, the higher enthusiasm score, the higher return on investment. I had a couple of good predictions on my own, but the Lego community on YouTube has really good predictions. I'm going to keep collecting the data the same way that I am, and I'm going to do more data analysis like this as soon as I can. But for now, that's a wrap on this one. Thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Oh, and don't forget, my videos are for entertainment purposes only. I do not provide financial advice. You got to get that from somebody else.